In the beginning, there was darkness. And then the creator said, let there be light. New camera, yay! Is it smoother? Ooh, 60 frames a second. Yeah, I got a new camera. So now while we talk about deep things, you can enjoy my stubble. Okay. Yes, the Sony ZV-E10L, one which comes with the lens, and it's like extremely difficult to get hold of due to stock shortages in relation to the just global chip shortage. I don't think it's a completely new camera, but I don't think it's secondhand. I think they used it as like one of those display ones that they put in stores. So, I mean, that's okay, as long as it works properly. Anyway, what's happened today? I put out version 5 of the Hot Tools add-on and published a video about that on the main channel. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it already. So there's a bunch of new like workflow improvement tools and stuff in there. Things related to like forming collections of objects based on queries, global control for lighting within the scene, and there's a bunch of other stuff I want to add as well. But whenever I get done with a project, there just seems like so much other stuff to do, like in all other projects. I've seen some really exciting stuff recently about the Volume Cube node for Blender 3.3 in geometry nodes, which I think is going to replace like a bunch of my previous techniques for getting voxelized mesh systems. I'm not too sure, I haven't looked into it yet, but I'll be excited to try that out. I think it's also about time that I get going on the next community roundup videos. So these are the videos on the main channel where I like to just bring in things which have been happening in the community. So like interesting Blender projects, new tutorials you could learn a lot from, and just, you know, a variety of stuff like that, and to just package them all together into one nice video and share my opinions on them, because I feel like that's quite an important element to those videos as well. Not just saying what's available, but kind of adding my personal take about them. I do feel like we're starting to kind of develop a main identity for the main channel, which is something I never really felt like we had. Like the last few years, it's just been quite chaotic, and I guess that's kind of how I liked it. But I think it's good to have some structure, and it's been quite reassuring seeing some results as well from spending a bit more time working on the product related stuff. As you can understand, it brings in some more funding, which adds some confidence to like the longevity of this kind of work. And the goal is that in the end, hopefully it enables me to kind of continue to not just grow myself and my channel, but also help to grow the Blender community, even if it's just from my little corner. And I think that's quite cool. It gives you like a nice sense of purpose, and a sense of purpose is something that may be a bit difficult to come by, you know, in the modern age. I think, you know, there's an immeasurable amount of chaos in the world, and it's very difficult to know what the right thing to do is. And I think, of course, like more than ever now, people are jumping between different types of work and different interests, and everything just seems to be moving in a direction where there are so many options, so many things to try, so many things to consume, and not enough time to consider all of them, which is a big problem for people that want to do or want to try everything, which I think is a good thing, like a good thing to feel, because curiosity is important. Being open to experiences and kind of new information is a good thing, because it will help you to keep learning, keep yourself mentally stimulated, because you don't want to be stagnating. But a sense of purpose is something I have kind of like struggled with. When I was coming out of school, I had one purpose, which was don't work for anyone. Which sounds a bit childish, but I think it was quite a good one, because it was more in the fact that find your own way and find a way to get rich, I think was one of the motivations, without working for anyone. And there was a very solid plan to do that in the way of going through game development, and it worked to a certain degree, but there were a lot of emotional factors which hindered that progress. One of those emotional factors was bumping into some of the most aggressive and just horrific bully personalities, which kind of really pushed it down. But I think experiences like that were really important and really significant, like going through the rough, spending some years recovering from it and kind of developing skills and finding new direction, and packaging those experiences in a way that will make it better for me to relate with other people going through those things. I think that was very important in the pathway to becoming an educator and someone who kind of develops resources and tools and kind of discussions and information to help people kind of navigate those creative difficulties. My sense of purpose back then was quite shallow, I think, because I didn't really assign much value to the surrounding world and surrounding life and surrounding people. I've spoken a bit on other discussions. I think I did a community conversation in the Blenderness community server and spoke about this, but like I had trouble with school, not necessarily kind of like in a traditional way. It wasn't just like bad grades or bad behavior or anything like that. It was poor performance up to a point when something switched, but it was actually just like I just never felt compatible with the environment. Like being in an institution, I never really connected with any of the other kids, and part of that is because of having like a very different kind of background, I think. But I think that's only the answer to up to a limited point, you know. A lot of the other kids were very kind of closed-minded and judgmental, never really had any ambitions, just like way too peer pressure oriented as well. Like, I think you know what I mean. And I just never really felt like on the same wavelength with any of them. So life back then was extremely different, you know, and even like years after leaving school, I still used to get those dreams and nightmares where you're back in school and you're being told what to do and you can't leave, etc. Actually, let me tell you a story about that. You see, I've had like a bunch of weird medical conditions and issues over the years, and, you know, my migraines and stuff used to flare up quite a lot during school. I have a blood condition, and that was actually quite a good thing to get diagnosed because it was something to write on paper, which I could kind of present to the school and say, hey, look, I need to leave now because this. But you know how schools are with like these kinds of pointless rules and old ladies with power complexes, do you know what I mean? So there came a point where one day I was feeling extremely sick. Like, I was having a horrible vestibular migraine as well. Also, my nystagmus was kind of just messing up. This is kind of like where your eyes just start spasming all over the place. Everything was feeling weird. I couldn't talk properly. So I ended up going to the office and just saying, look, I need to leave. You know, I get sick, I need to leave. And this lady there, I don't think she'd been there too long. She was like, no, you need to get a letter from this teacher. And I was like, well, look, this isn't like a one-off thing. This is a recurring thing. I have a problem. And I think I pulled out like the letter showing it. She was like, no, you need to get a thing from this teacher. And I just looked at her and I gave her like the death stare. And I haven't done this to many people, but just like it's like a very just a threatening blank stare. So what I did was I just walked out of that room, walked down the corridor. I think she probably thought I was just gonna like, you know, back off and go, you know, oh, settle down and spend the rest of the day in school. No, I walked out the building. I just walked towards the gate, the front gate of the school, and walked out. It wasn't even closed. It was just a simple moment of liberation. I was like just staring at this kind of blank slate NPC of a human being with a power complex while I'm feeling sick, and it's just a moment that triggered in my mind, just like, no, I don't think so. So just literally walking out and go, no cares whatsoever. I was 100% prepared to like climb the gate, climb the fence. There's a pretty difficult fences to climb as well. They got like the spiky bits on top to stop people from climbing up. I was 100% prepared to do that just to get out. I never ever clicked with like that kind of prison institute complex thing, and it's just, I think it might be a genetic thing as well, because I've heard my dad talk about his time in school and there were some similarities. Like he said he used to stand at the gates and just really want to be outside, and I have very distinctive memories of being in primary school and just like holding on to the gates and I think almost crying, just want to be outside. There was a time when like I was I had one of the teachers, this was in like primary school when I was a young kid, try and pull me into the room, and my mum trying to push me into the room, and me like holding on by like my nails, just like gripped to the door frame, not wanting to go into the school. It was really that bad. And they tried to embarrass me afterwards as well. Like when you're all sitting there, you have to sit cross-legged on the floor along with all the kids, and they do the register, and so they call you name by name, and then you have to say here miss, and whatever. And I said it a bit quietly because I was upset, and they could hear me, right? But because they want to embarrass you, they say, I'm sorry, what was that? And they try and make you say it louder. So you have to say it louder. And I said it kind of angrily and aggressively. And I think she gave me like this death stare. A lot of school was like that. It's where you're genuinely like an innocent kid and a nice kid, and you wouldn't hurt a fly, but you've been put into a situation where you're forced to do something you don't like, and suddenly you're the criminal. That was my relationship with school. I hated it. It just felt like a prison. And that's not to say I didn't get on with like teachers and stuff, because, you know, I did. I ended up doing really well in school, like the second half of secondary school, but I still hated it. It still felt like a prison. So like my main motivation and purpose coming out of school was just anything but this. Like anything but an institution, anything but a room, anything with people telling you what to do. You've had no freedom whatsoever growing up through all of this. And it never felt better to me. Like there was never ever a day where I thought, wow, I really enjoy school. Never happened. Yeah. Got like no happy school days in my memory at all after like all those years. But in a way, when you look at it, it's like I maintained that desire for freedom the whole time. From like the age of 4 to the age of 18, my desire for freedom was continuous. And I think in a way maintaining that kind of turned me into like who I am now, where it's like ignore the institute, adopt as much information as you can, but the final goal of being make something for yourself. So as soon as you leave, go for it. So I felt like there was a lot of kind of pressure-induced conditioning that way. Now as for a sense of purpose, I think purpose for me has changed massively over the last few years, and that's because I finally have prospects, as I would describe them. Like my life, my career has a direction, and that's something I never had beforehand. So now in that regard, I feel like I now have the mental capacity to think about other purposes, right? It's like Like your life is not in an immediate danger. You're not feeling this sense of survival to get away from an institution. When the YouTube started, my final end goal in quotes, there's no like actual end goal, but my main target was the 100,000 sub mark, because after basically living with YouTube for all those years, that seemed like the main thing, the main proving point. If you can do this, that is an achievement you will carry with you for the rest of your life. It's proof that you can beat the system. It's proof that you can do something that you set your mind to. And it's not because anyone else gave you the path to do that. It's because you found the path, you put in the work, you found the way, and you did it. So 100,000 subs was the end goal for that. And from speaking to other creators, it's been the similar end goal, again in quotes, for a lot of other creators. It's like the final mark. It's the proving point. So after reaching that point, I knew fundamentally that my sense of purpose in life would change, because now that that goal has been achieved, what is the goal? What other goals do I have? What reason do I have to do anything? And for a more sensible option, I think a good follow-up goal is, well, if you've achieved what you wanted to achieve, then a reasonable goal would be to help other people achieve the same thing. And that's quite a sensible one, but it's kind of, I don't want to say boring, because I love doing that. I love helping people to grow their audiences, but that's not something that I feel like should require 100% of the effort. I feel like it's something that can be done on the side of building a better infrastructure to make that happen, if that makes sense. It's like if I allocate all of my passion and resources now to helping other people grow, that won't be as effective as if I continued with my own stuff and then like 10 years down the line, then tried to help people grow. I'd be able to do a lot more then. So that's more like a tangential goal rather than like a main goal. So the last few months, or the last year or so for me, has, I think, kind of in a more spiritual sense, been a journey of discovery and trying to find an identity for, I don't want to say a legacy, because legacy has like bad connotations to it sometimes, but an identity for our productive contribution to the universe, I guess. What is the direction? What is the path? Where are we leading it now? Where are we nudging it to? Because it's all fine trying to do like random things and just trying to make random cool stuff. But what are we actually trying to make happen in the world? So in the fantastic podcast episode with Lex Friedman interviewing Grimes, she raised a point about how the world generally should stop seeing things in terms of like financial progress and income, and just raising a monetary number as like the primary value for success. But we should also consider social good as like another form of measurement, another form of success, another form of income. And after listening to that podcast episode, that fundamentally changed the way that I look at success and progress. Because now when I'm doing things, I'm thinking, okay, well, there's a certain amount of financial payoff here, but there's also a significant amount of social good payoff in the way that many people have been helped by this project. But again, social good's a bit of a tangential thing as well, because again, like if we focus entirely on producing social good now and neglecting things which help to raise an audience, then you'll be doing less social good now than you could have been doing if you had spent more time raising an audience. So you see, you're making a comparison between like a hypothetical future and the present. So part of finding a sense of purpose now is trying to understand this kind of balance and understanding where we are in the present compared to the future, and trying to make kind of adjustments to find a point where we can do more social good in the future to be able to make a larger impact on the world. Now, rule number one, if you've been around for a few videos, as you may know, is all things within reason, or aka nothing is ever truly black or white. So when it comes to kind of thinking about having a sense of purpose and understanding what you want to do with life, for me especially, it's never just like a single reason thing. It's nice to have these markers like social good, which you can kind of latch onto and think to yourself, okay, this is a good enough reason for me to make this choice instead of this choice, and kind of guide yourself in that way. But nothing is ever black and white. There are so many factors, and there'll be different factors on different days. Like one day, maybe I'll spend a lot of money kind of investing in new equipment or paying some people to do something, or maybe just donating to some artists, and I'll think, well, today the reason why we should go this way is because of an income. We want to make more income. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Some days I might not have to worry about that, and I might think, okay, well, what's the social good value for today? Well, maybe that would be taking this direction. Maybe sometimes it's just fun and life satisfaction. But I believe in the value of groupthink, right? Groupthink being the collective whole of a population, all voting together is more likely to come to a correct answer to like a proposed question. Like how the average of all the answers can be surprisingly accurate. Now imagine that you at every point in your own personal timeline is the group. Every time between now and your future that you're stopping to make a decision on what to make or who to speak to, what to respond, where you're going to allocate your time, where you're going to take breaks and stuff like that, every point along your timeline is another individual version of you, and you're collectively making different decisions. But the hope is that you collectively making all of those decisions is going to lead you on the right path. So I think I'm starting to understand now that purpose is not necessarily an end goal. I think purpose may be more a general sense of direction. It doesn't have to be, I want to make the most money, I want to produce the most social good, I want to reduce the suffering of animals in the world, I want to stop war, I want to end world hunger. Purpose can be all of those things, combined and working together to lead you on your decision-making path in the right direction. So I'm feeling like maybe it's okay now not to have a very definitive sense of purpose that we can write down on paper. But sometimes when you stop and you're feeling anxious and you're having some insecurities about your work, having a lack of a very specific purpose to consign yourself with can be a bit anxiety inducing, because it makes you kind of question your own personality, your own purpose, your own existence. What am I doing? Am I really doing this right? Do I really know what I'm doing? So I feel like despite understanding the whole kind of general direction aspect, maybe it is quite handy having something to hold on to. So when considering that, I think for me, the thing to hold on to is teaching people how to use software and helping people in their projects. Combined with that is generally the way I feel when I'm making products, producing tools for myself to make it easier for me to make things in the future. That's like a very nice, personal, definitive answer, because that's generally what I'm doing anyway. Every product I make, I imagine myself using it to make something cool in the future. If I project that and imagine that me feeling that is every other person which I could give it to, then I feel like that's a good way to connect the personal purpose with like the wider community. So for a little while I was quite anxious about the idea of a sense of purpose, but I feel like I'm kind of getting to grips with it a bit more. I feel like maybe it's a privileged thing to be able to sit in a position to actually worry about having a sense of purpose rather than just surviving, although I do worry about just surviving as well. But anyway, yes, maybe quite a rambly video, but sometimes I like doing these things. These are therapy sessions for me, as well as just videos for you. I'll make the emoji for this video a tree, don't ask why. Thanks for watching everyone, stay safe, and I will see you next time.